What word would you use to describe living in Tacoma?
Gratification.
That's a good word. How would you explain that?
Well, Tacoma is a beautiful place, and everything's accessible here for everything that a person wants to do. And the people, I think, are the main factor, as well as the natural beauty of the surroundings. Beautiful surroundings and beautiful people, I think, makes a gratifying life for anyone.
colorful news of the 20th annual Puyallup Valley Daffodil Festival. Your friendly Lincoln Electric Furniture Mart and its owner, Tony Riccono, make possible this TV presentation of the graphic film report, was recorded by Bob Richards of Richards Studio in Tacoma. Puyallup Valley, with between 500 and 1,000 acres planted annually in the vicinity of Puyallup, Sumner, and Orting, produces approximately 20 million bulbs annually for sale. Golden, radiant, and awe-inspiring in their glory. The golden-haired youngster is Sandra Stainbrook with her doggie Blondie. Near the golden blooming daffodil field is Ed Orton in Puyallup. Sandra pauses long enough to fasten the daffodil in the collar of her dog Blondie.
Hello.
I would like to tell you the words that I thought of.
All right. What one word would you use to describe living in Tacoma?
Pollution.
Pollution.
Uh-huh.
You think we have a lot of pollution?
Yes, because we have a lot of factories there.
Do you think that's good or bad?
That's bad.
Commencement Bay, her rippling waters rise up with the tide. 'Twas there that Mr. Rust's great dream would be, he did decide. And men would come from far and wide to work the smelter's trade. And they'll come to North Tacoma where the copper dreams are made. From South America come ships all topped with copper ore, and they'll travel down through Puget Sound to meet the furnace roar. And when the job was through, the copper to markets would go, and the sparks will fly to fill the dark sky and set the night aglow. Oh, farewell now, the swing shift whistle's blown its final day. Farewell to the smokestack or Commencement Bay.
It stood for 75 years, and when it came down, it was awe-inspiring. The history of the smelter stack is a major part of the history of the town of Ruston and the city of Tacoma. The original smelter began as the Ryan Smelter in 1887. The deep water port of Tacoma, with its railroad connections, made the site of the lead smelter an excellent location. Businessman Dennis Ryan sold the smelter in 1889 to W.R. Rust, who changed the smelter's name to the Tacoma Smelting and Refining Company. Within a dozen years, Rust installed copper furnaces, and in 1905 installed the first electrolytic copper refinery on the Pacific coast. By 1911, the smelter was one of the world's largest suppliers of copper, and over the years has been one of Ruston's and Tacoma's largest industries.
My kid's dad worked there for 14 years when it closed down. He went on to different work, but I don't know, that's why we came down. It's kind of historic for us as in the family, so that's actually what brought these two into the world there, medical insurance down there. But I don't know, just great, thanks.
The stack was built in 1917 at a cost of $245,291. The 572-foot stack was the tallest in the world. In 1937, after earthquake damage, approximately 10 feet was removed from the stack's top, making it 562 feet tall.
I'm pouring wealthy bricks And how long did you work at ASARCO?
I worked at the Sarco for 37 years. I worked there till it closed in March of '85. I worked there till the end of June. And so I was the manager's secretary. So I have a lot of fond memories of the smelter. And it's really sad for me to come down by Ruston Way and watch the smelter be decapitated piece by piece. And I think it's a shame that they weren't able to just go in there and really take the whole place down, because it's just a very sad thing to watch. Today's a very sad time for me because I have many memories of the stack. I can remember the day that I came to work and Greenpeace was up on top of the stack with their flags, and it was a very hectic day. A lot of people say some very bad things about ASARCO, but I think it was a bulwark of the community, and there was a lot of good things that happened. And all the time that I worked there, safety was always a part of the company's policy, and they always tried to do the best for the community, and I believe they contributed a lot to the community.
After dominating the Ruston and Tacoma skyline for more than 75 years, the stack was showing signs of wear and tear. The stack demolition cost ASARCO almost $600,000. The cost for the entire plant demolition is estimated at $12 million. The weight of the smokestack was almost 13,000 tons. It was estimated that the impact of the demolition would be little more than the impact of a few trains using the tunnel. The stack was demolished with the technique of implosion. The weight of the chimney was used to bring itself down. Control Demolition International was the demolition firm of choice. CDI's vice president, Doug Luazzo, was the explosives expert. A pit 170 feet wide by 360 long was dug to collect the rubble, and the area was bermed up to contain the debris. On top of the berm, a system of 11 sprinklers was used to control dust before and during the demolition. Each sprinkler had a radius of 90 feet. Slots were cut near the base of the stack to weaken the structure and to help control the fall. 260 holes were drilled into the lower 30 feet of the stack on the east, south, and west sides of the chimney. A wire mesh was hung over the holes, and then explosives were placed in the holes. The bottom of the stack was 5 feet thick, and the buttresses were 10 feet thick, so the holes were deep and required more explosives. After the explosives were placed at the base, a curtain of geotech fabric was placed over the mesh and the explosives to contain the initial explosion and to protect the charges. Shape charges were also placed on each of the supporting bands. These charges are designed to cut through metal bands like a knife. The shape charges were placed along the safety ladder, up to 130 feet from the top of the stack. The first sequence of explosions blew out one side of the base, tilting the stack approximately 15 degrees. The second explosion, 1 millisecond after the first, removed the base on the opposite side, the tilt, and causing the structure to come down on itself. The steel bands that supported the stack were blown with a sharp crack, permitting the structure to break up and fall straight to the ground. The top 130 feet of the stack was expected to come down mostly in one piece. The area where it landed was marked by an empty net of reinforcing rods. When the dust cleared, one lone portion of the stack stood as a sentinel overlooking the rubble. Samples of the brick were taken for analysis. The larger portions of the stack were broken apart, and the large tombstone portion, which was cracked and leaning precariously, was taken down safely. The bricks were evened out within the pit and covered with a layer of earth. A layer of geosynthetic material was laid over the earth and then covered up with a cap of more earth.
Ask you how you feel today. Are you more sad or more excited? I'll ask a couple of you the same question. How do you feel?
Sad. That's the word. Sad. Very sad. I mean, after all, when you work down there for 30-some years, you make your living down there, and pretty good living at that, you know. And you get to know all these here guys. A lot of them you never see again. It's pretty sad.
Almost every television station in the Seattle-Tacoma area was on hand to record the fall.
This is the biggest event around
An
here.
estimated crowd of over 100,000 people viewed the demolition. Even the Vashon Island Ferry stopped to watch the event, with some 1,500 other boats. Families came to enjoy the view. People brought cameras and camcorders. Friends picnicked and partied. They came and waited for hours, all for just an historical 8-second fall.
Here we go, Sarko, here we go. Blow it up, blow it up. Yeah.
The demolition was fantastic, spectacular, crowd-pleasing, and yes, well worth the wait.
Was it worth the wait? Yes!
The stack demolition was just the beginning. ASARCO will maintain its presence at the old site, developing plans for the cleanup and the future.
Talk about Tacoma, if you would, about, why are you here? What brought you? What are the changes you've seen? What's it meant for black people? How have you as a black person changed? How have you as a black person looked at other minority people?
Well, I kind of came here as a member of the United States Air Force at McCoy. I'd only heard of Washington when I was in school. It was a remote foreign country. But in 1951, I entered the Air Force from my native Georgia. And I came back on leave, and I came through McCoy Air Base, and that was my first experience in the state of Washington. Primarily a military man. I lived, after my wife joined me, in Tacoma. And in 1961, we ran into the housing situation. We wanted to rent a decent house in the city, but a friend of mine who was also in the Air Force was going to show me around. But he brought me to what I now know as the Hilltop area in terms of the housing search, because that's where blacks were kind of directed to, not by
where they chose, huh?
Not by any sign. My wife was working in Idaho, where I had been assigned before coming to McCoy, and we just wanted a decent apartment or house for the two of us. But in the end, I rented a place at 1741 South Fawcett. Not exactly what we wanted, but after looking around, that was all we could find. So we stayed there for about a year, and we ended up buying a house in Tacoma. That house was at 2220 South 17th. Again, we were introduced to a black realtor, Frank Russell, and he had restricted areas where he could sell to his clientele, primarily black folk. So we bought a new house, and probably wouldn't have bought it had we been able to rent what we wanted to rent and get a decent place that we could afford.
Would you give your full name?
My name's Elizabeth Wesley.
And how long have you lived in Tacoma?
31 years.
31 years. How do you think the entrenched society here received especially the minorities and especially black people coming in during World War II?
You mean how did the whites receive them?
Yeah, how did they react to it?
Not too good, not too well. Because more or less the ones that were here, they knew them. And so everybody knew everybody where they lived and everything. But now the new people come in, they weren't too, because you go to the Winthrop Hotel, you might call to make reservations to eat dinner there, and they wouldn't let you. When you got on there, they seen you were black, they didn't let you eat. See? And the same made about these little bars downtown here on Lower Broadway. We made reservations there a couple of times to go to dinner and went down there and they didn't have room. We sat around and they looked at you, like that.
Did your daughter go to school in Tacoma?
No, but all the grandchildren have gone right here at the Tacoma Central and McCarver. That's where they've gone. And even the great-grandchildren are going to McCarver, where the grandchildren went to.
How have they found the schools? What has been their reaction?
Well, the schools at first were not, they were interracial, and they weren't equally balanced, but through the NAACP and other organizations coming in here, I think McCarver is around the best schools it is in the country. And this Title I program, and along with other women, we go to these meetings, and I find that it's, according to other schools and the racial disturbance they have, Tacoma is the best. I really do. Mm-hmm. But at first it wasn't, because, as I said, it was it wasn't balanced as it should have been. And now with this busing coming in, with the busing, and I think Mr. Jack Tanner, who was the president of the NAACP and a good lawyer, he's the one with the cause of it. We thought at that time that he was just off of his rocker when he first said that the schools were out of balance and they must integrate and they must bus, but he did the works and people heard him. And I think now it's a fine school.
Has Tacoma been a good place for you to have lived?
I think right here it would be all right with me. If it's, I would rather. It just is because it's small. You see, it's small. I lived in Denver, and I lived in Wyoming, and I've been to California, and Oakland's about the same way. But it's a small place here, and it's the reason why my husband liked it, because it was small. And, of course, everybody knows everybody's business, so.
A part of education is learning to think and choose for ourselves. Some people try to do our thinking for us. However, each of us must think for ourselves. This is freedom. Freedom to ponder, freedom to think, freedom to read. Freedom itself is varied. Your freedom may not be my freedom, yet each of us is free in some way, if only in our thoughts. Freedom to choose and the freedom to read are protected by the U.S. Constitution and the First Amendment to our Constitution. The freedom to think and to read all kinds of books is the basis of our freedom to learn and to keep on learning. Libraries are the public places where the freedom to read is important, where books are kept for people to read. All kinds of books for all kinds of people. Libraries collect and circulate books for everybody's interests and believe in the freedom to view, to see films and videotapes. And a special part of the library is reserved for children who also learn that they too have the freedom to read. Ideas come from many places. From movies and plays, from teachers, from friends, from table talk at dinner time, from television, from musical lyrics, from travel. Yet, books are unusual, for they often express new ideas for the first time, like Newton's principles or Darwin's writings. Some of these ideas are controversial the first time around and later become accepted or rejected. Library materials are selected to reflect different interests and tastes and may be controversial. In a democratic society, ideas exist in a free marketplace. They coexist, they harmonize, and sometimes they collide. Good ideas, according to John Stuart Mill, drive out the bad ideas. The task of the library is to make sure that all points of view are represented. Libraries select, collect, and circulate all kinds of materials for all kinds of people. Librarians are not book burners. They believe in the magic of books. There are book burners. They don't want to burn all books, only the ones they dislike. Book burners believe more in telling you what to read than in freedom.
Would you want your daughter to grow up like Deanie?
Are you the devil's disciple?
Why, no, Oh, sure, we can do that.
Excuse me, please.
Were you interested in the other?
Where's the library director? My son is not going to read this trash.
We want that book out of here. We want it out. We don't like it. It's not right. We want to get it out of the library. We want you to decide today to get that book out of here. This county doesn't need the kind of filth that she's peddling, and the taxpayers aren't going to stand for it anymore.
The right to challenge and protest is as American as apple pie and the Boston Tea Party. So too is the freedom to read. Now, sometimes people with different views of freedom find their positions in conflict. All American freedoms have been dearly bought. Preserving them can also be costly and difficult. Maintaining our freedoms is no easy task, for they are constantly being challenged. We should assert our freedoms, especially the right to read. But merely authorizing and asserting freedom is not enough. Edmund Burke said, "The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing." We must challenge the censors and the book burners. If freedom is always being challenged, it must always be defended. Freedom unused is freedom lost. We must never lose the precious freedom to read. As the American Library Association's Freedom to Read statement so eloquently says, we believe the answer to a bad book is a good book, and the answer to a bad idea is a good one. So now let's see if we can sort out the good and bad ideas in the challenges we've just seen.
Would you want your daughter to grow up like Deanie?
Let's go up to my office. I think we can work things out. Now, could you please explain to me how you feel about these books?
Look, our daughters are reading Judy Blum books and we parents don't like it.
We think they're filth and shouldn't be given to our children.
You have every right to protest the availability of these books.
Yes, you have this right. And we will be glad to help you select other books you might want your child to read.
However, the library doesn't serve in loco parentis. We can't be your child's parent, and you wouldn't want us to be. So we can't remove some books that the parents don't want.
The director is right in this case, and the protesters are partly right too. Parents may indeed restrict the books their children read, but the library may not, indeed cannot, remove some books while retaining others.
this meeting. The issue before the library board is whether this booklet on medical services for our citizens should be made available at our reference desk. Mrs. Clinton, as reference librarian, does this booklet deal with the questions raised by Mr. Harris? Contraception, abortion, and the rights of homosexuals?
Yes, there is information on these topics, but only by way of providing information on sources available, lists of appropriate medical specialists, both men and women, and clinics with their locations and telephone numbers.
Well, come on, it's all bad stuff. No, come on.
Since the contents of this booklet are in question, I will appoint an ad hoc committee of Mrs. Baker, Mr. Jones, and Dr. Simpson of our board to review this for our next meeting.
Come on, there's no reason you can't decide this.
This challenge to the freedom to read deals as much with the library as a public source of information for all members of our community as about the contents of a booklet. The board knows this, and their judgment is to delay a decision until the facts are clarified. Do you think they made the right decision?
There's no reason you can't decide this today. It should be clear that you can get that book out.
Where's the library director? My son isn't going to read this garbage.
Just a moment, please. I'll get the assistant director.
Well, you better get someone. What are you people running anyway? A drug farm? This book tells you how to grow marijuana.
May I help you?
Yeah, what do you mean by peddling this gun? Excuse me, sir.
What assistance can the library official give in this stormy situation? What would you do in her place? These challenges to the freedom to read are only some we encounter. Not all patrons are as angry as these you have seen, and some are even angrier. Challenges come in many forms. Sometimes a challenge will come in a letter to the editor in the local newspaper. Sometimes in the handwriting of a child supported by his parents. And sometimes in the polished prose of a person with advanced degrees in literature. And you may be on the receiving end of a vocal patron telephoning in her challenge. Whatever the form of the challenge, and however received, a competent, professional answer must be given. An answer that might be as simple as,
I'm not sure to the answer to that question, but I will find out and call you right back. Okay, you're welcome.
Occasionally, the staff may feel a bit threatened, not by patrons, but by the authorities themselves.
May I help you?
Yes, I'd like to find out who checked this book out at this branch library. It was just found at the scene of a crime.
What do you do? Do you know? Does your library have a confidentiality of records policy? Or what would you do if a school principal telephoned to say that a certain book on your shelf was obscene? Does your library have an acquisitions policy? Your defense of the freedom to read may sometimes be unpopular, but that defense is the sound foundation of the American Public Library. You are committed to ideas, to many of them, and even to some of which you yourself disapprove. So be it. Remember, nothing is more dangerous than an idea when it is the only idea you have. As a member of the library community, you are the custodian of ideas, and to the challenges of a freedom to read, you must counter with the confidence that the democratic way is to discover the truth for ourselves. And it is through books and the freedom to read them that such truths are found.
On a drizzly Monday, February 27, 1961, around 100 people gathered on Broadway in downtown Tacoma to witness the opening of Tacoma's Escalade. This Escalade was a $205,000 100-foot moving sidewalk that connected Broadway to Commerce Street at 12th Street. The Escalade was to make climbing the steep hills of the downtown area a little easier for its pedestrians. Unlike an escalator's stairs, the escalator operated a rubber-grooved ramp with a handrail similar to an escalator's. Mayor Ben Hansen cut the ribbon and was the first to ride up alongside Councilwoman Ellen Price. Behind the mayor is Councilman W.G. Jerry Bott and the man in the brown suit, is Deputy Mayor James Porter. The 1960 Daffodil Queen, Diane Harkness, was also in attendance. Its speed was about 120 feet a minute, a little slower than the average walking pace. The Escalade was designed by local architects Leah, Pearson and Richards, and built by the Jardine Brothers Company. As time marched on, maintaining the Escalades became more and more expensive since repair costs were high. Vandalism increased and downtown ceased to be the shopping destination it once was. By 1989, the Escalades were demolished. Some were removed to make way for the then new transit center on Commerce Street. This particular Escalade was replaced with an architecturally designed stairway dubbed the Hill Climb, which is there today.
This footage was taken sometime around 1951 at Casey Stengel Field in Glendale, California. The Tacoma Studs were an amateur baseball team sponsored by local Tacoma lumberman Ben Cheney. Ben Cheney, here on the right, jokes with a fellow player on the bench. The Cheney Lumber Company developed the Cheney Stud, which made framing new domestic homes easier and less expensive to build. Cheney saved money from his salary from his highly successful lumber business to fund many youth and amateur sports teams around the area. The Studs baseball team seem to be playing an exhibition game against fellow Studs teammates in this footage. To the right in this shot, we can see Arlie Kangas, a Stadium High School grad and baseball standout, playing for the Studs. Since the construction of Cheney Stadium in 1960 and subsequent renovations in the 2000s, the city of Tacoma has maintained its passion for baseball.
In the days prior to white settlement, the inhabitants of the Pacific Northwest were trading people. The trade routes passed through the Southeast, Central and South America, and as far away as Japan. Among the tribes along the coastal shores was a tribe that other tribes called the Puyallups, which meant to offer one more. In a land where generosity was the standard to measure wealth, it was a name that held great honor. The Puyallup people had a great deal of wealth to draw from. They lived in an area rich in natural resources. But the coming of the white culture to the Northwest meant establishing new standards. The new definition of wealth was measured by property lines. In 1854, the Medicine Creek Treaty was signed. It established the boundaries of the Puyallup Reservation. The city of Tacoma grew within those boundaries, and over the next 100 years, the tribe lost control of the land, air, and water within the area that had been the traditional home of the Puyallup people. By the end of the 1970s, the tribe had lost thousands of acres of land and were in the process of reestablishing and organizing a tribal authority. Since that time, the tribe has created social services that include a health clinic, a full dental facility with the only Indian orthodontics lab in the nation, and a mental health program dedicated to Indian needs. The tribe also runs a fisheries management program and is beginning an economic development program. The tribe runs its own school district for grades kindergarten through 12. In 1984, the Puyallup tribe filed suit in U.S. District Court asserting tribal ownership of 170 acres of former tide flat lands. At that time, a group of officials representing local governments in Pierce County and representatives of private businesses met to work with the Puyallup tribe to try to reach an out-of-court settlement. That effort has lasted for 4 years. In July of this year, a proposed agreement was mailed to the members of the Puyallup tribe, who will vote on it August 27th. The following program describes that proposed agreement. The proposed agreement, if ratified by the tribal members, would give the tribe approximately 900 acres of land in addition to conveying to the tribe the current bed of the Puyallup River. This will increase the land base of the tribe tenfold. 6 different parcels of land would be transferred to the tribe: 43 acres fronting on the Blair Waterway, 85 acres located between Taylor Way and Alexander Avenue, 72 acres on the inner Hylobus Waterway, 5 acres at the head of the Hylobus Waterway, 7 acres on Taylor Way and East-West Road, and 57 acres in Fife, currently owned by the Union Pacific Railroad. In addition to these 6 parcels, the tribe will receive 27 acres on Frank Albert Road in Fife, or $1.9 million from the Port of Tacoma. The proposed agreement also provides the tribe $500,000 to purchase forest or recreation land, something the tribe does not currently own.
In this final segment, in Tacoma in Motion, we explore our beloved regional attraction, the Western Washington State Fair, as it was in 1969. Since its inception, the fair has been a cornerstone event, drawing all types of people from various regions to share in the celebration of community spirit, local culture, and the rich tapestry of agricultural heritage that is central to our area's identity.